Hello, Miller here, and man, it's been a while since I've done this. Though this time it's going to be slightly different. I'm going to be talking over some footage which has probably been filmed on Caledonia. I'll get around to doing that in a bit. But in the past couple of days, I've seen either tweets or I've spoken to people who have complained about poor sleep, and this is something quite close to my heart. I've not talked about it publicly. Some of my friends know I've been having sleeping problems, or was having sleeping problems, I guess, at this point, and I guess I wanted to share my experiences. So, about 12 months ago, probably a little longer, shortly after I had started a new job, I started to have sleeping problems, and these began and manifested themselves as not being able to get to sleep for a while. So I'd go to bed at 11, I'd toss and turn for a bit until like 2, and then I'd fall asleep. And then things slowly progressed and got worse. And, I had a couple of nights' sleep where literally I got nothing all night. And I would think about going to work and then realize that was a stupid idea because I need to be high functioning to work, and, well, I wasn't after no sleep. And the problem for me, I found, was that the lack of sleep and the frustration, which is probably one of the few times that I've ever felt truly helpless in my life, it becomes a cyclic issue. I would go to sleep, or try to go to sleep, and then I'd worry about not getting to sleep. And it would just get worse, and it would build on itself and build on itself. I'd have 4 or 5 days where I would maybe get 1 or 2 hours a night, luckily. And then, usually on a Friday, I would finally essentially crash and finally get, 8 hours sleep again. If I was lucky, sometimes 6. And that feeling of helplessness, I think, will probably stick with me for a long time. As I say, it's the only time I think I've ever felt that. So I wanted to talk about the journey in getting better. I'm not going to say cured, because I'm not. And I think that's still going to take a lot longer. So eventually I went to see my GP about a different matter and talked to her about the lack of sleep I was getting. And she offered a couple of different things. We tried to go through and figure out very quickly if we could figure out, the cause of it. But you get 10 minutes in a British doctor's office by default, and we weren't going to figure out everything at that point. So essentially, she gave us some suggestions of doing something like cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'll get onto in a bit. And she offered, a pharmaceutical solution. Well, actually, 2 different solutions, depending on whether I felt that it was an external anxiety issue or whether I just needed help sort of getting over the hill so I would get to sleep. So I value the ability to think clearly, and I was hesitant at the thought of taking a drug that would essentially alter my mind state, if you like. So something that would alter my feelings, my moods. I didn't want to go down that path. It's rare that I'll drink, and when I do, for example, I know that I'm not going to want to do anything for the rest of the evening. It's an active choice, but I won't just have a drink, like a half after work and then go home and then do other things. I don't like that feeling. So I took the option of having a drug to, help me fall asleep, but not actually really knock me out and not try and suppress whatever was going on in my head. Because, she, like I felt, I probably needed to work through that rather than, just a chemical solution. So I was given a sleep aid. It was a histamine, and it helped to a degree. Like most of them, it eventually stopped being useful. they have a habit of, or your body has a habit of becoming immune to them, and it just stops being effective. But let's be honest, they did help for a bit, and certainly they helped get over a sort of edge that there was always something wrong, and it did help knock some of that anxiety about going to sleep. But because I knew that they would essentially become ineffective, I ended up rationing myself and trying to only use them when I was really feeling desperate, or when I'd had very little sleep the past couple of nights. And it did help as a stopgap. It helped on, like the middle of the week, or, at different points during the week. So I could get some sleep, and that was helpful. But it wasn't the solution. And for me, in the end, I tried a cognitive behavioral therapy course. In particular, it was sleepio.com. It was suggested by the NHS. And it's I want to say 8-week program. Maybe it's only 6. I don't know. I'd have to look it up now. And it attempts, it's all automated, so it's all just algorithms and things like that, but it attempts to identify what's wrong with the way that you sleep. It attempts to figure out your bad habits and help you correct them. And the first couple of things are, things like comfort in your room. Is your bed comfortable? Is it too hot? Is there a window open? Is there light? All the sort of things that would provide a physical disturbance to your sleep, which, even would have an effect, even if it is a psychological issue. It'll help remove a little bit of a barrier to getting to sleep. So that made sense. And, while the course doesn't really focus on the psychological issues, what it does do is essentially it teaches you how to sleep again, which sounds very strange. In particular, actually relatively late in the course, and this is, I think, one of the reasons that these CBT courses have such a high dropout, is that you really do need to stick with it, and I am glad I did. So eventually we got to the main part of the program, or what I still perceive as the main part of the program, which is establishing a sleeping schedule. It sounds really simple, but as you do the course, you end up filling in a sleep diary, and you mark the amount of hours you slept, the number of times you woke up, the amount of time you spent lying there. And to start the schedule, you essentially it figures out the average sort of minimum amount of time you will sleep, and it adjusts your schedule to that, and that can be really hard. So I set a wake up time, which for work was like 6:20 in the morning, and when I was getting an average of 4 hours sleep, it would say, okay, then you will go to sleep 4 hours before that. And initially that's mind-boggling, because you're like, but what if I don't get to sleep in those 4 hours? But you stick with it, and I think because you are tired enough, because at the beginning you do this for a week before any kind of adjustment, and you fall into that pattern again, and at the next sort of review cycle, you add half an hour's extra sleep on, so it becomes 4.5 hours sleep. You go to bed half an hour earlier, and you repeat this until you stop seeing an improvement in the amount of time you sleep. So for me, I stopped seeing an improvement at around 6 hours. And for a long time, even after the course was finished, I stuck to this sleep cycle. I would go to bed ritualistically at essentially 12, and got up at 6. And that's essentially how I learned to sleep again. Some of the other things the courses teach you is to ensure that you perceive your bedroom and bed, for the one activity of sleep. No reading, no watching TV, no playing on the iPad. There is an exception for, fun activities, but beyond that, you do nothing else in the bed. As soon as you wake up, you get up. You don't lie in there. And again, that takes discipline, because most people like a lie-in, and that's also not helpful because it's teaching the brain that, okay, it's okay to do that in bed. So, yeah, I mean, I found the course in that regard very useful. But let's not ignore the original psychological issues. So, I would say that they were the cause, but then the spiral that happened afterwards is what the CBT attempted to fix. So at the time, I had recently changed job, and I had moved up in the world, and I would have to say I still do, and it's actually really common in the IT world. That feeling of imposter syndrome, where you feel that you don't know what you're doing, you're not experienced enough for this job, you shouldn't be here, and that's an entire thing in itself that can need help. But it's fair to say I was suffering from some imposter syndrome. I was also doing many different pet projects in the evening and the weekends, and combined with the imposter syndrome, I was going to bed either feeling like I shouldn't be where I was, or that I hadn't actually achieved anything I wanted to do. Because I was constantly, as we'd say in the IT world, context switching between these different projects. And you do a little bit on one and a little bit on another, and you'd never have anything that was particularly concrete at the end of it. And that was hugely frustrating as well. So, realizing this was helpful, and I had made preparations to cut back on some of my pet projects. So at the time, I was working on Play Minecraft, and I had actually done a very similar video to this, where I announced my resignation. I'd actually given it into Olmok and said, hey, I can't do this anymore. And as it happened, that was, within days, or a day actually, I think it was, that Olmok said, hold off, I think we're done. And, a day later, Good came out and said, nope, show's over, we're all done. So that, solved one of my problems, and that let me focus on some of my other projects, and I began to feel like I was achieving stuff in those projects. And, one of those is Caledonia, which is now obviously running. And I think it's hard these days because, we're so connected to the world and we want to do everything we can. We want to participate in everything we can. And I had picked up too many things. And by dropping, playing Minecraft, by default in the end, and dropping a couple of other side projects, I was able to, focus on my one main side project, which was Caledonia, concentrate on improving myself and trying to, accept that I wasn't an imposter at my work. And that took work as well. And obviously, spending time with my partner, which I hadn't been doing as much, and feeling that disconnect as well. It's never good to, we'd go to bed separately before all this started, and, I may not see her in the evening apart from like 15 minutes 15 minutes and dinner, and that's not healthy either. So that's where I've got to, and I'm feeling much better now. I still have nights where I will toss and turn a little bit. One thing I suppose I should also mention is that the Sleep Hero course teaches you is essentially, if you cannot sleep, you get up. So you attempt to go to sleep for 20 minutes, and if you can't, you just get up. There is no point sitting in the bed feeling stressed. Either get on with something productive, or read a book, or try and chill out. Certainly nothing like an iPad, nothing like a TV screen or a computer or a laptop, nothing that's particularly active in terms of brain. No, no real games, nothing like that. But certainly just get up out of bed. And I actually found that really useful. And, that extends to, stopping any kind of computing activity for, I think it was 45 minutes before going to bed. And that was actually really hard for me. But, I did it because I couldn't continue the lack of sleep. I would have eventually lost my job. I made it work, and yeah, as I say, I'm much better than I was. I still will go to sleep or attempt to go to sleep now and again, and I can't. And actually, what has turned out to be the most helpful thing for me is going to sleep in another bed, away from my partner, away from the normal room. I have a glorified camp bed, which is one of these triple height things, so it's basically a normal mattress and it's really comfy, but it's in a different room and I can just escape to that, and I still find that useful. And usually if I can't sleep, I'll go to that, 15 minutes later I'll be asleep and I can wake up feeling relatively rested. So yeah, that's my experience with poor sleep, and I don't know if any of that is going to make any kind of narrative sense, but I hope it helps at least someone. And I've been through it, and I'm happy to talk about it with anyone if they want, and I will happily explain in more detail the things that I went through and see if I can recall any of the other kind of sort of mental tricks or things that I was meant to do in order to relax and sort my sleeping out. So, yeah, been a bit of an unusual one for me. I just kind of felt compelled to do this today, so there you go. Maybe I'll pick this up more often. I'm buying a house at the moment, and once I have a house, I'll have better internet, and I'll be able to upload again. Or hell, I'd even like to, actually properly try streaming games rather than game dev. So we'll see on the other side. Alright guys, been good. See you later.